If you want, take a look at, you know, we have N8N templates that have video tutorials that go along with them in the classroom. There's a bunch that are there for marketing, for like some social media ones, for email marketing and blog generation. Those are some great places to start. I would say though, if you take a look at those N8N templates, you know, you probably will want to change them around and modify them for your own purposes, but they can be a great way to just like sort of see how these things work and to, you know, get at least some initial POCs and things going. Claude Sonnet 4.5. Where did that come from? We're just throwing that out there. Is that the new, oh, is there a new sonnet? There is a new sonnet, right? Is that what that's about?
Yes, I'm going to play with it this afternoon a little bit.
I am always in Opus. I'm just burning up my tokens all the time. But yeah, I should check out to see what maybe Sonnet.
The story is you can do 30 hours of coding straight with Sonnet now. I have used it for writing and it seems a lot more rounded, and in terms of quality, if you look at the benchmarks, although I know those are subjective to some degree,
right,
the benchmarks are better than what was there previously, and according to them, outrank ChatGPT.
Well, that's always the most important thing, is to outrank ChatGPT. Well, I think that's part of it, is that GPT-5 just said that it outranked. So this is going to be a back and forth that we're going to see with all these companies. And, you know, some of it is just, if you're familiar with like sort of the media cycle or, you know, PR, is that they need to stay relevant. There's probably an aspect where they need to be releasing a new model update every so often. And it does have new features. It's kind of like the iPhones, right? We got to put out a new iPhone every once in a while, even if it doesn't really add any real value to you. We need something to potentially draw more people to the website, get people talking about it, and making sure that, you know, GPT doesn't take all the headlines. Who else? Osama. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Osama, I feel like maybe you're new. I feel like I would recognize that name. If you are, and you want to turn on your mic, just introduce yourself, or to throw something in the chat. If you're not mic viable right now, go right ahead. Let us know what brought you to AI Profit Boardroom and what you're looking to get out of it. Interesting how the Claude Sonnet 4.5 benchmark release didn't include any of Grok's 4 model. Interesting. Are you a Grok person, Arnett? Or are you Grok positive, I guess, or a Grok user? I don't run into many people who, I see it once in a while, but I feel like 80% of the people, maybe 90% use ChatGPT, and then another 5% use Claude, and then the rest are on Gemini, Grok, and Copilot. Hey, Osama. Hopefully I'm saying that right, and I'm not just mispronouncing your name every single time, but I'm known to do that. So yeah, yesterday was Q&A day. We have another N8N coming up on Thursday. I'm not sure exactly which one we're going to do, but that should be good. I'm really hoping to do Intro to AI on Friday. I'm still working on that presentation. If I don't have that ready by Friday, we might sub it in for something else, and then it would be the next Friday, because it's definitely going to be done by the next Friday, because it's due next Wednesday. Isn't Grok the most plugged into what's happening in the world? Yes, right. So theoretically, because it is connected to X, right? So it is the most plugged into what's happening to the world in real time. But if you look at what people are looking for from an LLM, like, that sounds good, but then most people aren't really super interested in that, like in knowing what X has to say. If you just look at their use cases, right? Especially, like, I was just having a meeting with a client earlier today about a project for legal contracts, and it's like, I don't care about what Grok has to, you know, like the Grok is plugged into X. They just want, you know, Anthropic because they hear it's the best, essentially. I don't know who told them that. A mix of Grok, Gemini, and revisiting Gwen 3, Max, and DeepSeek. Yeah, essentially. Oh, okay, interesting. So you're just like off the beaten path. None of the most popular ones. I need a space where first movers learn and share. Being an AI enthusiast, navigating this crazy shift alone is so hard. Yes, I can imagine. I mean, I do think that it could definitely be hard, especially with there being so much noise, so much hype. You know, if you're working on projects and you're getting frustrated with them, not realizing that everybody else is frustrated with the same issues. And, you know, it's a lot to take in, right? They just, I don't know if there's ever been a technology that would have advancements this rapidly, you know, and then you were supposed to be keeping up with it. Like I was just comparing this to an iPhone. iPhones don't come out with new versions this often, right? And then that's just one aspect of AI, right? Is the LLMs. But then Nano Banana, right, came out a few weeks ago. It's already old news. And so, and it is both 100% essential, supposedly, for us to be able to be successful in the world, but then also completely faulty and problematic, and everything just seems to be happening all at once. Deep Agent. What is Deep Agent? It's is it part of the DeepSeek world, or is it an agent platform of its own? The overwhelm is the biggest pain point. Yes, the overwhelming aspect is, I'm sure, the biggest pain point. Taking it one piece at a time can be useful. Chunking, like the LLMs need to chunk, we need to chunk. New platform. Okay, throw out there. Tell me a little bit more about Deep Agent if you want. IT. Gemini seems to be the best for professional white-collar use cases. Really? Okay. Gwen 3 Max uses are free. Yeah, and surprisingly better than I remember them being, especially Gwen 3 Max. Faster ones with more clear and concise responses. Interesting. Interesting. You know, I get so, you know, it's, again, like, not even just like the overwhelming part, but just if you start working on, say, a project or a set of projects, and you have these use cases that you need to be working on, you get very focused on that and very myopic. It does become difficult to just, you know, do a little bit of what Arnett is out here doing, which is like, hey, let me sample a few different, you know, LLMs and see how they're working and performing. Because, you know, lately I can tell you how the OpenAI API and how the Claude, the Anthropic API are functioning. But then once you get outside of that, then it's tough, because that's where I'm working. Okay, today I think what we're going to do is, so last week while we were going over the N8N workflow, you know, I saw that there was this 1,000+ N8N templates link that we had that links to a GitHub repo. Has anybody else tried to use that GitHub repo in the N8N templates that are there? There's more than that. It's 2,000+ templates, because I did. Not yet. Okay, give it a little try if you want. It actually is pretty cool to start. I was trying to watch my words there, because once you get it up and running, I wonder if I can share that part. Do I have that? Okay, yeah, I do. Okay, here, let me just share this really quick. I'm gonna share my screen, and then we're gonna move on. Here. Share. Okay, so, you know, it's not that tough to get it up and going. You can, again, like, just grab that GitHub repo, throw it into, copy and paste all the text on there, throw it into your favorite LLM, ask it how you get it up and going. It doesn't take too much. You do an npm install. There's like some dependencies to install, you know, clones it, gets everything installed, you're ready to go. And then it will spin up a local hosts front end page like this one, right? This looks pretty cool. 2,000+ total N8N workflows. And maybe this is my problem. Maybe I needed to go after the active ones. I didn't know. Let me see if there's a way. Active only. I want to try that. Okay. I wonder if that is going to help at all, because, and that would make some amount of sense. The problem I ran into, let's try one right now, and we'll either see if we have the same issue. It doesn't even matter, I guess, because if the problem is still there, then the problem is still going to be there. We'll do Telegram AI bot, download JSON, okay, and then that's a little peek into problems that we'll potentially run into. Great workflow, and maybe I'll realize now that this is useful for next week's. Okay, downloads, and how was it? Nope. Okay. Well, no. not great. So this is what I ran into with all of those templates, which is, I mean, I don't know. I guess there is, okay, so many of them were just, this is actually better. Look at this. This is one of the better versions of the templates that I found in there. I guess this could be useful. I don't know. I feel like just having a bunch of unconnected nodes without really strong documentation, and then a whole bunch of error handler nodes floating around. This isn't necessarily the greatest starting point. And I found that a lot of them were like this. Maybe if anybody knows why this, I mean, just for them to all start out of the box like this does not seem like the greatest solution. And so this is like the 6th workflow I think I've looked at. And again, this is better. Some of them are just like a bunch of unlabeled nodes and nothing. And so maybe there's some usefulness in those N8N workflows. I'm not really finding it myself. If anybody else does and they get interested in this and see how to use this better, let me know. But this is essentially what I found. And again, this is like a better version of what the N8N workflows are. So we're not going to really be doing that today. Looks like somebody manually edited the JSON file, or it's from an older version. I think that maybe it's from an older version of N8N, but I don't know what to do about that now, right? Like, so I guess maybe I can revert my version of N8N. I've never tried that before. I've never had a reasoning for it. And even then, it's like some of this stuff, like nothing's connected. That's, I mean, is that how older versions, would update? It does look like maybe somebody edited, but then like, what's going on here? Supposedly it's active, and so that's why I saw this active thing. And so I'm like, all right, here, maybe if we just only did active ones, ooh, night mode, that's cool. Okay, let's try this. All categories. Let's see. Last one we're going to try. Less than 5 nodes, active. Is this any better? And then we're going to just move on to what we're going to do today. Nope. And then actually first I'm going to introduce myself because I should do that. Because that's, let's see, Mattermost. I think it's this. No, it's one I just opened. Yeah, okay, Control Z. Nope, file. And I do want this one. I mean, better, I guess. Connect each one of these together. But even the way it does the ENVs, basically, like, I don't know. So mixed results, I would say. So today, get link, where is it? Yeah, there it is. I mean, it's definitely, we've got the stuff. I don't know if there's a way of just making that go better. But let's stop sharing just in case anybody's wondering. So quick, I'll do my intro, then I'll talk about what we're working on today, and then we're gonna go into it. So I'm Dr. Jeff, PhD in neuroscience, master's in biomedical engineering. I did both my master's and PhD thesis on computer vision and AI, optic flow estimation. After school, I went to go work in marketing and sales and operations, which seemed very weird for a while. Why does somebody who have a PhD in neuroscience and who did an AI thesis working in those departments or in those fields? And then years ago, I started to get back into AI, doing machine learning and computer vision and NLP projects for the most part. And then generative AI came around and everything started to make more sense, where now I meet with clients and consult and am working with teams on marketing and sales and operations and like, legal, healthcare, ed tech, what's the other one? Finance, fintech, and helping people with their sales pipelines and their marketing pipelines and their operational systems using AI. And so it all eventually came back around and made sense, where I have taken my experience doing AI and generative AI, and then my experience in marketing and sales and operations, and combine them to work on AI solutions, AI automation solutions for all those different, basically, I mean, I do it for everything now, but like it really kind of helps having a sales and marketing and operations background when building these AI solutions. If you have any questions, throw them out there. I always like to be interrupted because I have to talk too much during these anyway. And it's always good to hear get feedback from everybody. Today, since the N8N templates were not my favorite, what we're going to do is we're going to go over Hugging Face. So I talked about Hugging Face in a coaching call months ago. I mean, Arnett was probably in that meeting, was probably in that call. I don't know if anybody else here was. There's a lot of newer people. So this might be a completely new concept. If you have not heard about Hugging Face, here, I might as well just share my screen while we're doing it just so we have something better to look at. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, this is Hugging Face, and it's got this little cutie face over here. It is a, what would you call it? Hugging Face is the Wikipedia / YouTube of AI. I think that's probably one of the best ways to understand it. In general, AI is actually an extremely open source, collaborative field. That concept has, when image edit 0509, that looks interesting. And then this is, I think, I'm sorry for Osama, if you felt like AI was overwhelming before, this is not going to help. This is it. This is the playground. This is everything you ever wanted. So we think of AI as being something that is much more commercial, enterprise solutions, something that you pay for, right? We pay subscriptions to OpenAI. We pay subscriptions to Kling or to Runway or Claude or whoever, right? But for a long time, it wasn't really like that. Like really, and I mean, there's probably other, sort of smaller examples of this, but until OpenAI came along, people didn't really pay for models in that same type of way. And because it was like DIY, it was just for the nerds. And if you think about where this technology came from, a lot of this was and still is being developed at research universities, right? And so people would be building these models for their PhD thesis, right? Or as a postdoc in a lab, and they're just trying to like a research paper or anything like that, just get the word out on what they were doing. And then there's also sort of that Wikipedia, YouTube-ish concept, right, where like people contribute to Wikipedia or even like IMDb or something like that, right? Where they're doing it for like the love of the game, essentially. And so there is that aspect to this where people are either building models as part of their thesis, right? Or and in a research lab or whatever, and then putting it out there for people to use. A lot of these models have either an MIT license or an Apache license. Hopefully I get this right. MIT, you can just use however you want and you don't need to pay anything for it. An Apache license, pretty similar, but you're supposed to credit the people who made the model. And so in general, AI models and everything are just out there for you to use. And there's on here, let's see, we can go to models, it's maybe a little bit better. So they have models for everything on here. Some of our favorites are in here. There are ones on here that like you've possibly heard of before, like Gwen 3, right? We were just talking about Gwen 3. And then as you can see here, there's basically any type of, you have text generation, image text to text, image to text, text to image, text to video, text to speech, using all the different libraries. And so there's like various tasks here, so you can just like click on this. What I will say though is, and like a lot of this is ranked by trending, right? So you can sort by trending or most likes or most downloads. These are probably the best to stay in. There are potentially, I'm going to give this upfront warning, there are potentially models on here that are either like terrible in that like they don't do what they're supposed to, and or could possibly be nefarious or something like. However, and I guess that's true. We're out here. This isn't the deep web or anything like that. It's not that bad. But these are generated by users. A lot of times, and maybe not necessarily even the model itself as much as, at times these model pages. We'll take a look at one. Let's see. This is a DeepSeek one. Let's see what this looks like. So they typically have this model card, right, where somebody gives you this information and some installation idea of how to use it. This is the citation, right? This is MIT license, so you don't even need to, but you can, right? And then, again, like this is typically a lot of this stuff is, or at times it is connected to a research paper of some sort. I'm wondering if that one is here. Maybe. And then, so you have the model card. There's these files and versions that is hosted here. Look at pretty big file size, 4.3 gigs. I don't know if you need, I don't think you, well, yeah, I don't know if you need all of these. Maybe you do to run this. And then there's typically some discussion. A lot of these don't have necessarily like a, what would you say, good customer support, potentially. Like DeepSeek's a big company, right? And so they have some infrastructure in here. Some of these don't, obviously we got benchmarks in here, and there isn't necessarily like a real like for sure system on how this stuff runs. They typically will give you some instructions on how to run it or how to install it. At times, they don't update these well, and then the libraries change on you and things can go problematically. For a lot of this stuff, you will need to install the transformers library if you're going to be using it. Let's see, WAN. WAN is a pretty cool, they make, this is a video model. So if you want an open source video gen model, let's turn that down. Something like this, I brought this up before. I think I used WAN 2.1, so I guess we're on WAN 2.2, but yeah, I mean, they are really going pretty far with this. The thing with, so then if you wanted to, right, you don't need to use something like VO3. You don't need to use, what do we see? Ray 3 was the one we saw last week. Here is an open source video generation model. Now, video gen models are extremely resource intensive. It probably says somewhere on here on what it takes to run these. I remember when I was doing WAN 2.1, I think it took a 40 gigabyte video card, and then that wasn't even the worst part. It is loading the model on and then getting it to run. So it's like doing the install, having a good place to install it. So you might need to install it on a, especially if you don't have 40 gigabytes, right, of a video card. Then you're using a cloud service. So that could be like Google Colab, which we've shown before, or RunPod, which ran terribly both times I tried to do it. Maybe 3 times I tried to do RunPod. But if you're looking for something like that, then that can be not even, again, like you have to come up with a clever way for how to install it somewhere, be able to get it to load the model and then run it. And then this is not the type of thing I would do if I was, say, wanting to generate one video, because the amount of time it takes to get everything loaded and to get it running is just, it could take hours or something like that, especially if you're not doing this in a clever type of way. And so it's hours of time to get that all going. And then when you actually generate the videos, they could take like 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, something like that to generate. And so it is, especially if you're running a cloud service to do this, that is going to cost money, right? To do all that. But if you had a client, right, or you yourself was trying to create a large number of videos, this could be a cost-effective way of doing it, right? And the fact that it's also open source does mean it has fewer guardrails and censorship issues, I would say. I ran into this. Like, there are certain things that if you ask VO3 to do, it just won't do. And I'm not even talking about like things you would think it shouldn't do, like say nudity or like drug use or something like that, where it's like, okay, it's understandable. There are all kinds of things that those API models will not generate for you. And even some of it's like celebrity things that it has an issue with. And so, you know, and a lot of these will do image to video, right? And so like you could, like if you've seen like, if you want to do a cool video of say, we'll just throw it out there, Donald Trump and Elon Musk getting into a fight, right? You know, you could try to run that through some of these video gen models and they'll be like, no, we won't do that, right? This is a celebrity, we you know, this is proprietary, we're not interested in that. But when you use these open source models, they'll kind of let you do whatever you want. And so that's pretty cool. But as I said, like you'll have this model card, and then it'll have like a link to their website. But then this is really, you know, where things can get, because like they'll have this link to a GitHub repo, and then there's all this stuff in the GitHub repo. This is very similar to their model card. It has all this information in it. The hope is that this is brand new, so it should all work. Now this is a bunch of stuff, right? When I was first working in AI and I was using Hugging Face, I would go in here and I would like follow these instructions and then try to do it and just bang my head against the wall a bunch of times and drive myself crazy. Now I just copy and paste all this into an LLM and have it figure everything out for me. And the reason, part of it is that, again, like these instructions are not written very well. Almost universally, the instructions for open source models are written by somebody who is not expecting another person to do this, who's, you know, new to it. They almost write it as if they are notes for them to do it again after they've done it 20 times. And so if it's your first time, for whatever reason, they love to leave some aspects out of it. And then this part right here, install dependencies. I don't know what the deal is, why we can't get proper dependencies, how this becomes such an issue all the time, but the dependencies become a big deal. If you are doing like image and video stuff, Model Scope is super cool. They create basically like good, what would you say, like installation. They take a lot of these models and make them so that they're easier to run and like a little bit more efficient to run. But like, yeah, 80 gigabytes of VRAM. There's a reason why they're bringing that up. I don't see in here exactly, and I don't want to stick on WAN 2.2 too much, but yeah, there's a lot of 80 gigabytes of VRAM being thrown around in here. 24 gigabytes of VRAM. All right, that's better. But again, these are very heavy models. But if you were to build, again, a video generation pipeline, and you wanted to get rid of some of the guardrails, this is where you'd want to go. And so this is, you know, DeepSeek, one, let me go back, but there's everything in here, right? And so they have multimodal models, computer vision, NLP models, audio, text to speech, text to audio, speech to text, whatever you're looking for, they have it here. Some of the things that I would say are the least, like the ones that I have the most trouble with finding anything good on here would be, and again, like it might be different now, everything changes so fast, but the like AI avatar stuff where like there you can give like text and there's an AI avatar and it talks and it seems like you could tell it's a little bit fake, but like it's kind of real. I was never able to find anything good on here that was like that. And then text to music, I've only been able, like Suno, whatever, however you call it, is like the best text to music sort of platform I've seen. I feel like even the other platforms that you pay for are not that good, and you can find a text to music model on here. I don't think it'd be that great. But then things like the LLMs on here, the SLMs, the NLP models, the image generation models, the video generation models, the computer vision models that are on here, the OCR models, like they're pretty high level. And, you know, again, like for something like video generation, that's probably the most resource intensive thing that you're going to need on here. Some of these other models you can just run on your computer. I feel like, except for video generation, if you have 8 gigabytes of VRAM, which isn't that expensive these days, especially if you buy computers off of eBay, which is what I do, that are refurbished, you can get a computer off of eBay that has an 8 gigabyte VRAM system pretty inexpensively. But if you just want to use that to run some models and test it out, that would be a pretty good solution. So it has models, which is great. And then also you have, if you look up here, we have data sets. And so these could be really useful. You know, some of these, if you were trying to do, you need to fine tune a LLM or an image generation system or an image recognition system or something. There are a lot of data sets on here. There's also Kaggle. So we could just go and stop over in Kaggle just for a bit. So Kaggle is primarily for, they do competitions on here a lot. I always kind of knew it as sort of like they had these competitions on here. And they have like some beginner competitions just so you can get up and started. But then like, look, they have like $1 million competition. I don't know if anybody on here necessarily wants to start going for $1 million Kaggle competitions. The folks who get into these are pretty high level. You know, especially if you're doing $1 million one. I just saw this one being announced. There's this NFL Big Data Bowl. It's $50,000. So, you know, like, you know, pretty high level people are competing on these, you know, for the money, but then also for the portfolio piece that you can get out of it. And but beyond that, Kaggle also has a bunch of data sets. And so if you were to ever have a project and you needed data sets, the two top places I would look would be Kaggle and Hugging Face. And I don't know, again, like if you should necessarily go and look yourself as much as tell GPT-5 or whoever, hey, I'm looking for a data set for this purpose. Do a search on Kaggle and Hugging Face and tell me what's on there so that you can see what's going on, right? And then ask it for, you know, similar data sets or whatever. So yeah, if you ever needed data sets, this is a great place to go. Let me see really quick how our chat's doing. Anything in there? So many juicy prompt injection bypass tutorials, excellent. Scaries, a lot of picture and stuff. Who knows side of them? It's a great stack. Cool, 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 cool. Okay, nothing too wild. Now, the other thing that you can do, again, if you are new and you know, data sets, like there's 500,000 data sets in here. That seems like a lot. These models, how many models do we have? 2 million models, right? Most of them not very useful. But part of the reason why I was saying you want to use like the trending, most likes, most downloaded, these will not have nefarious malware on them. That's just not going to happen with these. But if you start going maybe recently created, recently updated, maybe, and again, it might not necessarily be on their actual Hugging Face page, but then the GitHub repository that's connected to it. I have never run into this myself. I don't even know if maybe there is something that they do to try to make sure that that's not, like they might have filters or whatever to keep that from happening. But you do get warned about it. I got warned about it before I started using this. And it is something to be aware of, right? Like this is open source. So it's not like if this goes wrong, you can sue OpenAI, right? Or anything like that. And so, but if you stick with the most trending, most likes, most downloads, these are not going to be models that people have put malware in. These are extremely popular models from really well-known companies, right? So it's like DeepSeek, regardless of what you think about Chinese models or whatever, they are not putting malware in their models. Same thing with like Gwen or Moondream. Like these are well-known Facebook, right? And that's another one, like Facebook, all of Facebook's models are Apache licensed. So they are, it's not Facebook anymore, Meta, right? So Meta creates a bunch of models that are pretty comparable, right? A lot of people know Llama. Yeah, Llama is their version of ChatGPT, right? Or GPT, we'll say. But then they also do Dino. They're on Dino v3 now. Dino v3 is pretty cool for a lot of different things. But yeah, so here are various open source models, and you can use these in your N8N pipelines. And maybe that might be something that I show in a future Dr. Jeff special, is taking a Hugging Face model and then integrating it into an N8N workflow just to show you, hey, like this is how you do it. This is how you get this model to work in your workflow, and how you would utilize it. Then we might need to have some sort of workaround to do some of this stuff, or either run the end-to-end locally, or I'd possibly need to host that model in a, like either in like Replit or RunPod, or possibly even like I might be able to do it through a notebook. Anyway, so models, data sets, what can be a little bit easier to dip your toe into and a little bit more fun and novelty is spaces. So spaces is essentially like demos of all these models. And so these are the spaces of the week. So these are like the most popular like spaces this week, essentially, right? Yeah, they're not, this one was uploaded 26 days ago, and so these are the ones that are really popular. But then as you see, our buddy Juan 2.2. Now I don't have a pro account. Pro accounts are not that much, $9 a month. If you can also host your own projects on here, so that like if you were building something for a client or something, you could host it on here. But then also this gives you access to run models through them, and to be able to use the spaces a little bit less restricted. Because as you'll see, if I keep on clicking on, especially like something like this animate one, there's only so many times it's going to allow me to animate anything, even if I don't even know if it'll allow me to do anything. But here, let's see. Will it just, yeah, so this isn't actually, but this is just showing you what it'll do, right? So these are examples, but like I could, how do I get out of here? Okay. So this is them just showing off some of the work they did that was able to be done with this. That did not look great, that part. Let's see, that's not amazing right there. I wouldn't be happy with that. And then who do we got here? Whoa, and then they gave it a crazy prompt, right? Let me see. I'm going to stop sharing just for a second, just to make sure that I don't have a weirdo image that I'm going to be pulling up. Anything good? A picture of my daughter. A lot of my kid is doing this thing where she is making a, well, she won a national award last year for her video project. Maybe we'll see if it'll take this picture of my dog. All right, let me go back to sharing. So hold on, now it's going on. Okay, uploading the file. All right, let me get back to sharing. Okay, this is Boo. That's my beagle. He's a nut. Let's see what happens when we ask it to generate a file. So it's going to sit here. It's probably going to take a little bit for it to generate a video, but you know, it is allowing me to do this. Oh, right. So now I have to wait for the queue to become available. All right, and it's processing. So we could check in on this, but this is essentially, and then we'll pop over to another one probably after we see what this does. But that is Hugging Face. You know, you get to, but like basically every good open source model in the world is on Hugging Face. I think that there's probably almost no reason why somebody would generate an open source model and then they didn't put it on a Hugging Face, right? Where, I mean, even with something like YouTube, there's also Vimeo. I don't know if people do much Vimeo, but there's like competitors. It's almost a monopoly as far as open source models go. And I guess somebody could have a vendetta against Hugging Face, but every open source model you want on there, a huge number of data sets, and you get to, a lot of people, like they don't have to, but a lot of people who are doing these high level models will create that spaces situation, and so you can test them out and see what they're like. And then if you pay the $9 a month, then you can really test them out without any like if you saw I had to wait, well, I think you might still need to wait for a GPU. If you see, like if I try to create a bunch of videos, at a certain point it's gonna be like, no, you're good. But they will allow you to go again. What are data sets against? Why do we need them? Okay, what are data sets again? So I was gonna say a data set is a set of data, which sounds pretty obvious, but for instance, so all AI, and this would be good when I do my intro to AI talk, all AI at some level needs to get trained on data. Like that is the inherent aspect of AI. And so the way that it's able to make these decisions or predict things or how to generate something or any of that stuff, it does that by seeing a bunch of different versions, right? It sees like a huge number of examples of something, right? So for instance, I can train, so this is like one of the things that I've done before. So I can train a computer vision model to be able to recognize dogs and cats and animals and humans and cars or whatever. It was like, well, how do I do that? You have to set up your model to begin with, and then what you do is you basically train it on these images. And I'll talk about this more in Intro to AI, but like you will show it 100 like different images of a dog, right? And 100 different images of a cat, and 100 different images of a human, for instance. Usually for a lot of these typical models, it is something like 100 to 1,000. Those are like the typical numbers that it needs. And then in training, the most basic way to explain it is what you'll do is you will show it, say, an image of a dog. You'll put the image of a dog through the model, and then you ask it. Essentially, it's like, well, what do you think that was? And if it says, oh, that was a dog, you're like, oh, okay, great, good job, I love that. If it's like, no, that was a cat, then you tell it, no, that's wrong. And when it knows that that's wrong, it goes and it changes its weights. And essentially, that's the connections between all of its nodes, and it's its form of learning. And so essentially, all AI models start out completely nonsensically stupid. They have no idea what anything is. And then you just train it 100 times, a million, like 1,000 times, a million times for these huge models. And you are just giving it an incredible amount of data so that it is able to now be able to do the tasks you're asking for. And one of the most important parts of training and this data is this concept of overfitting. This is a very counterintuitive concept for people to understand, and it's essentially you do not want your model to be too big and you don't want to train it too much. And the reasoning is you don't want it to, and what it will do is eventually learn and memorize your data set. Because the point of AI above automation is that AI is supposed to be able to handle essentially any scenario within its domain, right? So if you look at, say, ChatGPT, I can ask ChatGPT a question in any way. Like I can change the words around, I can ask it in a different language, I can miss some letters, I can do all these different things, and it'll still answer me, right? And that is because it's AI, because it has been trained on a huge, incredible amount of data, so that it doesn't need to have an exact one-to-one question to answer, query to prompt to response, right? Because it has been trained, it is flexible enough to be able to handle a variety of different things and still be able to answer a question. And the same thing goes with like Google Maps or something like that. Google Maps, every time it gives you a direction to go, it is, it has an incredible amount of information that goes into it, but it has never seen that exact scenario before, right? Where it's that time of day, that day, with that type of traffic pattern. It's seen something very similar, and then it can base something on that. And so this is why when you're doing your training, you do not want to overfit, because in overfitting, what it'll do is it'll memorize, and the way you know that you've overfit is that and this is why AI can never be 100% correct, is that it starts to get every answer right. It ends up getting 100% correct. And once it does that, you know that you've gone too far and you've done it wrong. Because if it's getting 100% correct, that means it memorized everything. It's it's very similar to like memorizing the multiple choice test, right? Where it's like, okay, great, like I know that it's A, B, 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 C, D, D, C, B, A, right? And then now you've memorized the multiple choice test, but then the next day the teacher comes through and it's like, oh yeah, I changed up all the questions. Now they're all in a different order, and you're going to get everything wrong, right? And so data sets are used to train AI models or to fine tune them, right? So let's say you have a large language model or even a small language model. People are more interested in using small language models now. It's one of the bigger things. Is that if you have, say, these LLMs or an SLM, but then you're building a project for marketing or for a healthcare company or for legal or anything like that, what you can do is get a data set of text that's domain specific, right? So potentially it has a bunch of legal jargon in it, right? Or healthcare terminology in it. And then you use that to fine tune your LLM or your SLM so that now it is, using more healthcare jargon, right, and healthcare terminology. And so that's another reason to have data sets. Data sets come in basically all different formats for all this different stuff. So there's text-based data sets, there's numerical data sets, there's image-based data sets, and that is my very long data set rant. All right, let's see. Did we get generated video? Oh, let's see. Anything? Oh, there he goes. Who's actually right behind me right now? So he gets to see all this. Okay, so like, yeah, so you could test out, you know, building, you know, working with that. There's other types of stuff in here. Let's see. So let's see if this will generate an image. We'll stick with the boo theme for today. A beagle dog on a couch looking cute. Let's see. Okay, that's then. Well, I am signed in with Hugging Face. I wonder why. Okay, okay, maybe they just wanted me to do an extra thing. I haven't run into that before. These are all very different. Oh, I guess maybe it's signing into their thing with whatever. A beagle on a couch. This will also probably won't take as long as video generation. But yeah, you know, you get to test out a bunch of stuff. And I think then, yeah, what I will try to do is maybe for, no, look just like Boo, but not as cute. Pretty good image though, right? This is another Fall AI thing. So maybe it is connecting to Fall AI through my Hugging Face account. I don't know, but yeah. So that is Hugging Face. Anybody have any questions about Hugging Face, AI, open source, issues with using these models, things to watch out for?
So what you're saying, if I understand properly, like this Hugging Face have the latest model, whatever released by anybody, right? Like means we can get the latest model, and that will be like all the multimedia models are available here with text, image, video, and all the stuff we can use, right? Those,
Yes.
yeah.
So it's the most up-to-date open source models, right?
Okay.
Like GPT-5 won't be on there. However, I think there is a GPT-5 clone on there, which is, you know, a little nefarious. But like when you see like some of these or like VO3 isn't on here, right? That's something that they want you to pay. So the ones where you have API access to them, but then there is typically something that is 95 to like 99% as good as any of the sort of paid for models are going to be on there, right? So and they are, as you're saying, so for them it is the most up-to-date ones. The most up-to-date open source models are on there, and they are fairly state-of-the-art.
So are they many free models are available? Like means because every model, although they say free, if you use again they open router also, we need to upgrade, right? Although they are free, we need to upgrade with open router key and then use, right? This
No,
model.
so if you're using them on Hugging Face, potentially you need to get a Hugging Face subscription to use them continuously. But if you can just download these models. If you see like, and we gotta go really quick, but like, let me go back to get out of here, spaces. Right, so if you on these models, you know, files and versions, you know, here's the files. You just download them. And you can start using them. If they have a GitHub repo, I think that is, right? You can just go, boom, you can just download them, you can use them. The only issue, again, is you have to check the licensing for them. If they are MIT licensed, then you can use them in your projects and do whatever you want with them. If they're Apache, then you need to give credit to them. But then otherwise, if you want to use them yourself, there's no cost. There's absolutely no cost to using these models. Once these models are on your computer, you can use whatever. The only cost potentially is that an image generation model, an LLM model, a video generation model for sure are going to need an incredible amount of computing power or GPU. So like some of these video generation models need 40 to 80 gigs of VRAM, which you would, if you do not have that on your computer, which you most likely don't, then you potentially need to rent cloud space to do it. And so that's what you would pay for. But if you have, again, like the image generation or the text generation models, typically you can run those on Google Colab on their free account for a while. And so,
Thanks.
but you do not have to pay for the models.
Thanks a lot.
That's it. I will see everybody on Thursday.